Huh. Bobby.
It says starting recording.
Looks like I got you.
Looks like it. Hold on, let me see if I can adjust this. There we go. Am I good looking or am I fat and ugly?
Oh, you're so bad. You're worse than I am, man. How have you been?
Dude, I've been doing good. I'm down here in scenic Arizona, right near Mesquite, Nevada. Were you at the World Championships in 2010 outside of Las Vegas?
Remember we had Arm Wars like just a few days afterwards.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait, yes. So you
Right.
were here. So
That's right.
that town where the Worlds was, that's where I live.
No. I wasn't at the Worlds.
Oh, you just were at the thing afterwards.
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, I'm about an hour away from Vegas.
Yeah.
And, up here, and yeah, no, it's a lot warmer down here in the wintertime. We love it. We love it. So
A lot of the people won't know you on my channel. Well, actually, probably a lot of them do know you.
Oh yeah. Well, you got a lot of people that aren't arm wrestlers, so I mean, whatever, you know.
For everybody who doesn't know, let's do a little bit more of an intro. Bob Brown, you've been arm wrestling forever.
For 30 plus years, 35 years ish.
Yeah.
At the world level.
Yeah, you've been crushing it. And one of the things, well, the reason why, like, we've been friends for a long time, frenemies.
Yeah, frenemies, exactly.
But I always respect what you got to say about the sport. You're a guy who's just as crazy about it as I am, so you're opinionated and you spent a lot of time thinking about the sport.
Yeah, and on the topic that we're going to discuss, I'm uniquely knowledgeable about it, and we'll get into why. And but first, before we do that, I need to throw a shout out to my new motto in life, which was presented to me by Craig Touillet. Okay?
That is good. That is good. Hey, in opposition to that, okay, so this is perfect. This is perfect.
That could have been better. That could have been better. So, yeah, I've been on the world scene. You know, I've trained with the best. I've trained the best. Most people know I trained with John Brzenk for 20 years. I trained with Todd Hutchins for years. You know, I was the captain of Team New Jersey way back when. You know, I've won different world titles. I'm the Master World Champion. And the intro, I have the beloved screwed up arm.
You're even worse than me.
I'm worse than you. Actually, there's a photo somewhere out there that Mrs. Monster Michael Todd put out on like Instagram or something, where me and Mike laid our arms down on the table to see who was shorter, and mine was actually worse than Michael Todd's. I've done the exact same thing with Crazy George, and Crazy George is worse than mine. But the worst is Pascal Girard. I mean, his is the worst of everybody.
Yeah. That's what I thought it was gonna. That is the order. I don't think there's anybody tighter than Pascal that I've met.
No, I've never met anyone tighter than Pascal.
Yeah.
You know, and so obviously we're going to discuss the King's move.
Yeah.
And partly why I'm uniquely one. I know exactly what it is. I have an arm that can do it within the current WAF rules. And I've listened to both yourself and Ingen Tierzy's podcasts or whatever they're called. And and I understand the breakdown that happened between you two guys. You know,
right.
There was a language breakdown. The conversation shifted drastically, and Ingen didn't realize it shifted.
And neither did all of his fans either.
Exactly.
But we were just getting started, okay?
Oh yeah.
We were just beginning to scratch the surface because I am deeply invested in arm wrestling. I care a lot about everything in the sport. And the King's move, what upsets me is the narrative that surrounds the King's move. Because I am so emotionally involved in the sport of arm wrestling, when I receive what is not like, I've always fought for fairness in arm wrestling. I know people find that hard to believe because I'm a
Right.
because when I'm on the table, I am probably a dirty fighter.
Yes.
Okay? But there's refs, and that's their job.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Well, I mean, and I understand that I have a little bit of, a reputation of a guy who is going to try to bend the rules to attain victory. Okay. But I want to be very clear that I always fight for fairness in the sport. Okay. Like, I invented the fairest strap.
Yes. Now, I agree. Now, before you continue, I want people right this second, because Ingen Tirzy just got upset. There is a difference between a conversation about fair and unfair versus a conversation about what the rules currently are.
That's
They
correct.
are two totally different conversations.
Completely different.
Completely. And so what we're talking about right now is which one? Fair and unfair, or the rules?
There's three conversations.
Okay.
There's what are the rules?
Yeah, that's the rule, right?
There's what's fair and unfair.
That's a different conversation, yes.
And then there's where does the King's move fit into all that?
Gotcha. Yes, I'm with you.
Right.
So the
Okay.
first part's easy.
The rules.
The rules are easy.
Well, the rules are easy depending on because the rules are different across different leagues.
True. But the most prominent rule is the WAF, the IFA. It's basically the same rule. They word it a little differently. I was actually on the phone today with Luke Pulcher, who's a master referee and knows both rules. For those of you who don't know, I literally wrote the WAF rules. They handed me a set of the rules, and they were so mishmashed and unorganized. They asked me to organize the rules. So I did, and I rewrote them all. Also, the WAL asked me to write the rules. They wanted a way to put into words how to do the running foul. And so I wrote the rules for that as well. So in the WAF, if the rule says if the shoulder goes below the elbow pad, well, what they look for is they look for this humerus bone here going at a downward angle. I don't know if you can see that.
Right. So parallel to the floor. Parallel to the floor.
As soon as they see that downward angle, that is considered, well, in the WAF, they treat it as a broke arm position. They warn you to get out of it, and then they're supposed to then foul you if they do it again. And we all agree that that's a foul according to the rules.
Let me just dig a little bit further, just so we have it completely nailed down. In what positions is this a foul?
Only in the neutral and losing positions. It is a foul in the neutral position.
So what is defined as neutral?
Well,
so because
there is no definition. I don't believe there is but basically 12 o'clock high. Strict
12 o'clock. So from 12 o'clock and over
is losing or winning depending on what side you're on. So that 12 o'clock would be neutral.
Right.
So if I have you just a little teeny bit in the winning position, according to the W, I can go way under the table.
Right.
Because let's face it, that's what every top roller does when they finish a match. You
got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there was we were in, Ron Klemba was in a match at the World Championships, shoulder way below the table, but I mean, he was an inch away from pinning the guy. I mean, he's super close to winning, and they called a shoulder below the table foul on him.
Yeah.
And we're like, what are you doing? and it all got sorted out. So, that's the biggest problem, is the calling of this rule. If it was called, a lot of, and I know you want the rule to be changed. I get that. That's the unfair fair conversation. But
it's a completely different conversation,
it's
though.
completely different. I totally agree. It's completely different conversation. However, if referees would have called the foul under the current rule all the time, if it was called every single time, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now, because there's probably only about 5 or 6 people on the entire planet that can do this move within the rules. No one else would be doing it.
I think we still would be having the conversation, because the problem is that a lot of the people who are doing it are very prominent, and they account for a lot of views. So
that's true. That's a good point. You're right. Because of who does it and how well and they're winning. I mean, let's face it, if all of a sudden in the next 5 years I emerge as an open world champion, like, the whole world's going to go crazy.
Well, that's impossible, Bob. I don't know why would we even open that book?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's true. It's true. The King's move has gotten a ton of heat. And the problem is what Engen and I just started to touch on is, somewhere along the lines, I feel like the narrative has become that the King's move only works when you foul. And it's true. It's true. The King's move works a whole lot better when you foul, but so does a hook, so does a press, so does any move. They all work better when you're fouling.
True. However, I don't know. Are we having an audio problem right now?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. And there, I think we're good. So here's the problem, is if your arm goes straight, which, let's face it, that's most people. If your arm goes straight, you cannot do the King's move without fouling. It can't be done physically. If your arm goes straight, the only way to be out at the extent of your arm, your shoulder, you would have to have a negative angle. Because look, I'm in a losing position now.
Yeah, no,
I be in a winning position.
I can't imagine a position where your arm is straight and you're not underneath the table without being pinned.
You can't imagine where your arm is straight. Right, you would be under the table or you would be pinned. So if your arm goes straight, you cannot possibly do the King's move without fouling under the current rules.
Right.
Okay. And see, that's the thing. Most people don't realize that you agree with all this. You agree with the rules. Well, you agree with what the rules are.
Yes, 100%.
You would like to see the rules change.
Yeah, but that's a completely separate conversation. Look, at everybody who actually follows me closely knows that the rules are fine. Look at whatever association you arm wrestle with. Play within the rules, or bend the rules. Try and win within the rules. I don't think that the rules are perfect. I think that I love freedom arm wrestling. I think that's okay, but that's not really. And actually, if you go in freedom arm wrestling, we have that whole thing solved. Like you can't, like, because there is no pad. As soon as your elbow comes up, it's a foul. You can't even really finish in a top roll in freedom. You actually probably have to come up and have some kind of a shoulder commitment to finish in freedom.
Right. And, we've had that conversation, and I like more stricter rules. I'm not a fan of the freedom arm wrestling.
Oh, stop, Bob. See, this is along the same lines as a lot of people have with the stricter rules in WL or stricter rules in freedom. The rules in freedom are totally strict. They're just more liberal.
Well, no, and that's what I mean. So when I use the word strict there, see, we just had a breakdown in communication.
Right.
I don't like the liberalness of the rules. The enforcement of them, that is, yes, they're strict. They're strict rules, and you must abide within the rules, even within freedom arm wrestling. It's
Right.
just I don't like the liberalness. I don't like the fact
it's a very open system.
elbow. Yeah,
And that's fine. And that's fine. And I understand that some people want to fight in a rigid system, and some people want to fight in an open system.
Right.
And that's totally fine. That's totally cool.
Yeah.
But even if so, say let's make it as the most rigid rule system is WAF PAL, right?
Probably, yep.
Yeah. To think that people are saying that the King's move is banned in the PAL or the WAF. This is completely a false premise, because all the King's move is an open top roll. It's just open top rolling. People have somehow associated King's moving with the move is executed at the end of the range of your arm. This is completely false. King's move is an open style top roll, and yet it may end up that your arm is fully straight. And guess what? If you have an arm that doesn't lock before 180, you're not gonna have that hard stop that gets you continuing the game within the rule system of any league. There's not a single league from Freedom to WAL to Arm Wars to PAL that is gonna let you King's move with a straight arm and continue in the rules. There's not a single league.
Now, when you are saying, because I might disagree with you, are you saying with a straight arm, you're talking about someone whose arm actually goes completely straight?
Exactly.
Okay, no, then you're right. I agree with you.
There's not a single league.
No, it's just the guys that don't like the bone lock version of the King's move.
Right.
That's where people start to get upset.
Exactly.
And you got Crazy George, Michael Todd, Pascal Gerard, myself. I could name a couple of guys from history. You know, your arm doesn't go straight. And and then that's when people start to have a problem, because, you know, I can keep my shoulder above the table and be at the point where my arm doesn't go any straighter.
Right.
I guarantee you, if you get me to that point, it is freaking painful, and I'm going to quit.
Right, because you are actually starting to approach what the rule was originally created for, which is break arm position.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and then you've got, you know, Michael Todd. He has a higher pain tolerance than me, and Crazy George's pain tolerance must be off the charts.
Right.
I mean, that guy is unbelievable with his pain tolerance. I guarantee it.
Right.
And I get that people don't like that. So
now hold on. Now, what is it that people are not liking?
There's two things to it. One, they think it's ugly looking. And to me, it's only really ugly looking when you have that straight-armed person doing a King's move, and the foul should just simply be called and the ref's not calling the foul. That is truly ugly. Now, when Michael Todd does it, or I do it, or Crazy George does it, I'm not even going to include yourself in the conversation, because you've only ever done it once. And in my opinion, you did go at a negative angle and a foul should have been called. So I'm not going to include you in the conversation.
Which one? With Dave?
With Dave.
For like half a second. Like just
right. But if you follow traditional way of thinking, your elbow comes up for a half a second, you call the foul.
Absolutely.
You know,
and please, before we go further, did Dave ever do the same thing to me?
Oh yeah, no, you both did it.
Okay, good.
And people thought that was ugly. So that's, you asked me what I thought was ugly about it. That's what's ugly about it. When you got two guys doing a King's move where they're in a position where one of them there should be a foul call. And
hold on. Okay, so it's got nothing to do with, is it only ugly because the ref didn't call it?
No, it's ugly in my opinion. Okay, it's ugly because it's just ugly. I mean,
is it ugly? Hold on. So, are you telling me that you wouldn't have thought it was ugly if the shoulder didn't drop below that parallel line with the floor?
it wouldn't have happened if the shoulder didn't drop below the parallel line with the floor. You guys don't end up in that ugly position. It doesn't exist unless.
So all the way up to that point, you were totally cool with it. You thought it was beautiful.
Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, because then it's a top roll.
Okay, so you just have a problem with the actual foul not being called.
If the foul is called, we're not having this conversation.
See, so that's one of the things that's so interesting to me, because I feel like we are having that conversation more than makes sense. Because how many times do you see a hook jump or a shoulder crossing center line, even for an instant in a press? Right. Yet no one belabors the point as much as with.
Well, because the foul gets called.
No, they don't always get called.
Well, no, I understand that. But if someone's got their shoulder across the center line of the table and the foul's not called, right? And they just leave it there and leave it there and leave it there.
Okay, but nobody's really done that in a long time.
But that's my point, because they call the foul.
Right.
That's why they're not doing it. It's because they called the foul. Do you remember the match with Tim Lewis and Stop Sign?
Yeah.
It ended up very similar to you and Dave Chafee.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
Anyway.
I would not say that.
Someone's going to screenshot the both of them and drop it in the comments, I'm sure.
Listen, I made a song about that match. Okay, I called it Double King, yeah.
Okay, did you not think that match was ugly?
No, I didn't. And I understand that I'm in a very small percentage of the population.
Right. Then that leads to a whole nother conversation. But just remember the fact that
actually they are intertwined. They are intertwined.
Yes. But
and they become intertwined with what we were talking about with the bone lock issue.
Right. See, now those two guys, both of their arms go straight.
Exactly.
Both of their arms were at a negative angle, right?
Yep. Uh-huh.
So were they within the rules? No. Someone should have called a foul. Was it ugly? In my opinion, yes. Was it fair versus unfair? They both did it. It would be fair, except for the fact it's against the rules. There should have been a foul call, right? So I think that's one of the biggest things. You asked me what people don't like about it. That's one.
They say, what is it? Just because the foul is not called.
Yeah, because if you call the foul, that match it stops before it ends up in that position with Tim Lewis and Stop Sign. The match would have stopped.
I am convinced that this is not a conversation about a missed foul call. I am convinced that this is not why people are upset. It is not like people are not upset about the Kings move because people don't call the foul. I don't think that's it.
Okay, well, that's part one. Here's part two. Part two is you have arm wrestlers that don't like it because all of a sudden you have guys that are not using, in their minds, they're not using muscles and tendon and strength anymore to maintain that defensive lock. They are, in fact, resting on their bones. And they don't think that's fair.
Sometimes when I get a strong guy who comes into the sport and they're just using their muscles, I'm like, okay, eventually he's going to learn how to arm wrestle.
Right.
That's great. Test your frame, okay? I don't care what move you're in. If you're in a hook, if you're in a top row, if you're in a press, you can break your bones. Absolutely. Absolutely. When you look at the number of injuries that results from doing the Kings move, I would be shocked to see that it was higher than any of the other moves. And I actually believe that it would probably be lower than the rest of the moves based off the fact that most people who are proficient in the Kings move are veteran arm wrestlers.
Yes. No, you're 100% right. As far as the actual someone actually sustaining an injury while doing the Kings move, I completely agree with you. And here's what I'll say. And you're right. People need to test their frames. The strongest position in a hook the strongest position you have is a break arm position. That is the strongest position. We don't like people to go there because we don't want to see the arm break, which I think is wrong. We should just let the arm break. But have the arm right here in a normal hook. You're using muscles, ligaments, and tendons. Once you get into a break arm position, you're using muscles, ligaments, tendons, and bone.
Exactly.
Okay? That is the strongest position you can be in. So
100%.
I like, just on a quick side note, the traditional break arm position, in my opinion, especially at the WAL, PAL type of professional arm wrestling, they should let the bone break.
I agree with you. I believe that break arm position should be used in amateur events before the athlete is aware of the risk that they're undertaking.
Yeah, I've always said that WAF arm wrestling is scholastic arm wrestling. It's amateur arm wrestling. Now, it still has the best arm wrestlers in the world in it, but it's amateur because no one's making a living at it.
Wow.
You know, my definition of amateur and pro is making a living or not making a living.
I don't know if that's true. Okay. I think there are some WAF guys who do make a living.
Okay, there might be, but in that level of arm wrestling, I do think there should be a called break arm position. The safety, just like, you know, if you had grade school kids doing it, I would want to stop them before they broke their arm.
Sure.
You know, but once you're a pro, once you're a pro, all bets are off.
Agreed. Every single time I've seen Bill Sinks arm wrestle, every single time I watch Jerry Cataract arm wrestle, I'm like, dude is going to break his arm, but he never does, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then you have the mindset of the guy that just thinks, like I said, oh, they're stopping him with a bone lock. It's not requiring any strength. And that's a bullshit move. That's unfair advantage. Well, here's my comment to that. It goes back to the way the King's move actually got its name from Derek Smith. He's like, the reason it's the King's move is because you had to be in this sport, bust your elbow, come back into the sport, bust your elbow, come back into the sport, bust it, come back, bust it, come back, bust it, come back. Ask any of us how many times we've torn our MCL. Mine is in the 20s. Michael Todd's is in the 70s. Crazy George lost count when he went past a freaking 100. And we keep coming back to the sport. And over time, our arms have just shortened up. So we are the kings of the sport because we just never freaking quit. We're too stupid to quit, right? And so it is the King's move because you have to be a king in order to do this move. And by king, someone who keeps hurting themselves and just keeps coming back. That's basically what he said when he called it the King's move. And for that reason, it's an acceptable move.
Right. What? It has stuck. And now, you know, people call it the desperation move as well, which I think is totally fine. You want to call it the desperation move? That's great. Yeah. I just feel like if you don't have desperation in your arm wrestling game, there's something wrong with you. Like, are you telling me that you are not desperate when you arm wrestle? Because I know I am. Exactly. I'm desperate every single time I go up to the table.
Yeah.
You know, and I will do whatever I think, you know, I safely can pull off to stay alive, to stay in the match.
Right. Now here's where we get a little controversial, because I remember having a conversation with you years ago. You were wearing that shirt that your daughter made. Yep, awesome shirt.
Yeah.
And we were talking about arm wrestling, about the rules and things like that. And your acceptance of the King's move, which I totally understand what you were saying. You were like,
at that time I wasn't King's moving.
What?
And at that time I wasn't King's moving.
Right. You were like, I look at arm wrestling like a fight, like we're going to war.
Right.
And when you go to war, you use anything possible to win that match. Okay? And I agree with that. when you're going to war. However, this is a sport. We're not at war. There are certain rules.
Nobody's dying from doing the King's move.
Well, that's true. No one's dying from doing a King's move. But if you have a sport and that sport has rules, we can discuss
it does.
what the rules should and should be. And they've been discussed.
Hold on. Let me be clear, okay? There's a difference between war and criminal activity. Don't think, you may have misunderstood me. I am not suggesting that you break rules in war. Okay,
there are no rules in war.
Okay, this is the first I've heard somebody say that to me, because having been to war many times, all we ever faced was rules. Okay,
well,
there's more rules in war than you can imagine.
Okay, that's another story. Let's skip that one. But I understand what you're saying. But to me, it's, I agree with Ingen's version of what he thinks the rules should be. Right now in the
so am I. I'm fine with it too. That's the thing that people are missing. Look I am the whole shoulder dipping below the table and accepting that. It's a totally different conversation. Look I'm fine with anything. Look if the rule changes tomorrow and they say we're completely getting rid of the rule shoulder cannot cross center and shoulder cannot dip below the table, I'm never going to complain about that, because I think that's the way the sport's got to go. But I accept the fact that these are the rules and we have to play within these parameters. I'm not objecting to that.
Right. Yeah. No. You just, like you said, you're okay with what the rules are, fight within the rules. You just personally wish the rules would change.
Sure, but
you would rather have shoulder across the table, shoulder under the table, whatever.
I think the pad's got to move also. I think we got the pad in the wrong place in the WAL. I think it's got to move an inch forward. But
which I told the WAL the very second I saw the table, I said that pad needs, if you went an inch back, you need to go an inch forward.
I said the same thing.
They laughed at me, and I'm like, whatever.
But you weren't the only one, okay? I said 7x7, the way we have it is based off of normal human physiology, based off an equal opportunity to move forward and back. Yeah. What you've done is you've empowered all dragging styles, and you have not compensated an even balance to move forward.
Right. No, I completely agree. So the only real conflict that you and Ingen are having is not a conflict about what the rules are. It's a conflict about what the rules should be, really.
No, I don't think that that's the conversation at all. That's not the conversation that I was trying to enter, because I'm not even making that argument, really. The rule conversation and the King's move conversation are separate conversations. What I wanted to talk about with Ingen was, why is he so opposed to the King's move? Why does he hate the King's move?
Because he thinks it's an unfair advantage when only a handful of people can do the King's move within the rules. And he thinks people are getting out to a bone lock, and you're not using strength, and you're not using tendons, ligaments, and strength anymore. You're relying on your bone.
And you see, what you just said, that is where I wanted to get him.
Okay. Well,
right where we just took half an hour to get to this point.
Yeah.
That's where I wanted to get Ingen. I wanted him to say that, because this whole thing that he's pushing, where I don't have a problem with the King's move so long as the shoulder stays above the table, that's total bullshit. That's not his issue. His issue, no. I know.
But, no, you're right. For example, if Crazy George was to enter his class at World Championships, and Crazy George won his class, staying within the rules, Ingen would probably be upset, because the only reason George was able to do it is because his arm didn't go straight.
Exactly.
So I think that's everyone's real problem. You just got a lot of people talking about the King's move who don't know what the hell it is.
Right.
You know, and like me, I'm the first guy. When Crazy George was coming on, I had no problems with Crazy George doing his move. What I had a problem with was everyone saying Crazy George has the greatest lock in history. He's so strong. He has the greatest endurance in history.
Let me tell you,
no.
He is a hell of an arm wrestler. A hell of an arm wrestler.
Yeah.
His ability to control the match with most people, and I shouldn't even say his ability. It's a combination of both his ability and, I'm just gonna go out and say it, how unevolved most arm wrestlers are to play into it. Okay, it's those two things. It's those two things.
Right. But let me ask you this question. Crazy George has won the last however many Arnolds forever.
Yeah.
I'm going to change one rule, and that is the Arnolds is now a sit-down tournament.
Yeah.
You think Crazy George wins one match in that tournament?
Yeah, for sure. He'd still win because it doesn't matter. Crazy George doesn't need to drop that low. He can enter his King's move here. Like, what people don't realize is that's a lot of the issue that we're talking about. You see, it's got nothing. People's problem. People are saying it's a foul. Yes, it's a foul to do a King's move if your arm doesn't straighten.
Right.
It's not. Crazy George, Pascal, you, Michael, you can sit there and you basically can start a match in a freaking King's move if you get tightened up.
Right.
And which then joins the conversations of safety, why was the foul invented, versus why do you hate the King's move and where is the foul line?
Well, okay. The foul was invented because people thought it was ugly.
No, that's not true.
Wait.
That is not true.
They put it in the rules under the disguise that it's a dangerous position. That's why we're going to put it in the rules. But bullshit. That's not why they put it in the rules. They put it in the rules because it's ugly.
About
what?
Because rule was already in the sport when I came into it. Was this rule created during your career?
Absolutely. That rule has only been written and being used in the last 10 or 15 years.
No. That's not true. That rule was in the rules when I got into the sport in the mid-90s. It was called a break arm position. You couldn't break arm this way, and you couldn't do the hyperextension.
Okay, my memory's not the greatest. I would disagree with you. I know the break arm position was in there, the traditional break arm, but the extended version of it, I honestly don't think that was in there. But I could be wrong.
My memory's terrible, okay? I'm not one of those guys who remembers everything, but I'm quite sure that when I got into the sport, the two break arms were that one. Yeah, they've been there forever. And because of the emergence of guys who really know how to King's move and referees not calling it, it's been an issue for the entire time that I've been in the sport. People have talked about it.
That's been an issue. It started off Crazy George, and then it moved on to Michael Todd.
And now I'm dipping my feet into the pool. So I want to solve it. Because to me, my vision of what arm wrestling is just completely open. And people are allowed to break their arms, and you can do whatever you want. Okay?
Right.
And it's very simple this way, because as soon as you start to get into the weeds of where the lines are, it makes a referee's job incredibly difficult.
Right.
In my opinion, this entire struggle is based off of elite arm wrestlers, great arm wrestlers, learning how to pull in a break arm position within the rules of the sport in that particular position. People don't seem to mind when you're here about to break your arm. People, for whatever reason, they think that that's kind of okay.
Okay. Right.
But when you're playing off the hyperextension rule, people seem to have more, and I think it's because people still have a problem with top rolling. But
here's the thing, and here's what I always go back to. Here's the reason I'm not a fan of the King's move, and I think it's ugly. And here's why. When we were all 12 years old and arm wrestling, we just simply went like that. That's all we did. We went like that. We didn't even move our bodies. It was just do that. And then we realized, okay, you're allowed to move your bodies and you can dip. There's a lot of people who think that's bullshit. You shouldn't even be able to do that. You should just stand here and go like that. The sport
That's
evolved.
just a crazy idea. That's just
Hold on. Yeah, but no. That's what we all think of as arm wrestling as when we were kids. No, what happens in a King's move was never even thought of in the lunchroom in high school when you were arm wrestling against your buddy.
Well, I kind of disagree with you a little bit on two things. For one, you do look at, I mean, you've probably arm wrestled 1,000 new guys.
Yep.
1,000 guys who never really have arm wrestled.
Yeah.
And I'll say, in my experience, probably of those 1,000, probably 950 of them want to press to some degree. They want to.
Yep.
That's their instinct.
They come inside. Yep.
Yeah. And then you got about 5% of them that are natural top rollers.
Yep.
You got that. And then you got, actually, I shouldn't say, it's not just those two. Even smaller than top rollers are flop wrist pressers who actually feel good when they do it.
Right. Yes. No, I agree.
Yeah.
But there's no new arm wrestler that is a natural King's mover. No one enters our sport with a screwed up enough arm to be able to do it within the rules.
Now, I'm going to tell you that Crazy George lives about 5 hours away from me in southwestern Ontario.
Okay.
All right. So his sphere of influence is heavy here in Ontario. Okay. Like basically everybody in Ontario has to some degree been influenced by his immediate proximity.
He's the old man of the sea.
Yeah. I will say that people who are close to his bubble, okay? So I'm talking about the guys who are like west of Toronto, okay? And there's a lot of them down there, okay? And a lot of times he's people's first coach.
Right, but he's not teaching them the King's move.
No, he's not. But every single one of those guys is a King's mover, year one, okay? Every single one of them pull on a King's move. King's move style. They're just not at the end of their range, because what people don't understand about the King's move.
Okay, right. So something just hit me right at this moment. When you use, and it didn't hit me at this moment, I heard it earlier, but I'm understanding the importance of it now. When you use the words King's move, you are not talking about someone at the end of their lever.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. But when most people, when the Indian Tirsies of the world are talking about the King's move, they are, in fact, talking about someone at the end of their lever.
And that is part of the problem, is right. People are not understanding that the King's move actually starts right in the set. It starts right at the beginning, and then it's a style of giving things away and taking. It's a whole style of arm wrestling.
Right. So the reality is, in your world, it would probably be simpler if you referred to the King's.
Oh, you're breaking up, Bob. Hold on, Bob. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We're just starting to get good here. Let's see if I can fix this.